This little baby was born unable to be exposed to air because he was born without an immune system, so even a tiny microorganism in the air could be fatal to him. The parents had no choice but to create a sterile bubble house at home for Jimmy to live in. Inside the bubble house, all the common household items were already sterilized. There were high-end tin tops, elegant jade wind chimes, and a black and white TV with a Simmons mattress. To make it easier for Jimmy to move around, all the passages in the house were equipped with sterile bubble tubes. Every night before bed, his mom would tell Jimmy a bedtime story. Even the bedtime hugs were replaced with a pair of leather gloves. To take care of Jimmy, his mom had to quit her job and would carefully prepare breakfast for him every day, teach him to read and write, and use a few pentagon-shaped tokens to encourage him to grow up happily. But the neighborhood kids would often come by to mock Jimmy and say mean things. Seeing this, his mom could only drive them away to show her anger. Every day, the food she made had to be sterilized at high temperatures before Jimmy could eat it. Even though life was dull and boring, Jimmy knew this was the best living condition his parents could provide. Under their meticulous care, Jimmy grew into a young man. One day, Jimmy accidentally discovered a new neighbor had moved in next door, and a smile from the neighbor's daughter completely captivated him, as he had never seen a woman other than his mom. From that day on, Jimmy would secretly admire this sunny and cheerful girl from the window, and the girl soon noticed this strange boy who never came downstairs. The girl knocked on Jimmy's door, but the scene in front of her puzzled her. She followed the tube to the second floor and saw the boy who always peeked at her from the bedside. Seeing the girl suddenly visit, Jimmy was extremely nervous and didn't know what to say, only finding it strange how beautiful the girl in front of him was. In their subsequent conversation, he learned the girl's name was Chloe, and she had to move to this city because of her father's job. Jimmy also told Chloe about his strange illness that prevented him from being exposed to air. Although Chloe didn't understand the nature of the illness, she expressed her willingness to become close friends with Jimmy. After Chloe left, his mom immediately disinfected the places Chloe had touched. From then on, Chloe often visited Jimmy's house to chat and play with him. She would occasionally help Jimmy wash his hair and cut his hair. In return, Jimmy patiently taught Chloe how to play the erhu and pick locks. They spent their entire high school years together, and their relationship grew closer, as depicted in the previous scene. One night, a tipsy Chloe couldn't contain her emotions and went to Jimmy's house. The bubble membrane between them was frustrating. Chloe couldn't resist the urge to rush into the bubble to find Jimmy. However, within seconds, Chloe fell asleep. Jimmy wanted to open the door to take care of her, but he knew that opening the door would be certain death for him. This missed opportunity changed Jimmy's life. A month later, Chloe visited Jimmy again and told him she was about to get married. She tentatively asked Jimmy if she should attend the wedding, but Jimmy remained silent. Chloe then took out a gift for Jimmy, but he stayed silent and returned the guinea pig Chloe had given him. After Chloe left, Jimmy opened the gift box. Inside was a snow globe and a note that said, "I love you." It was then that Jimmy truly understood Chloe's feelings. For this hard-won love, Jimmy decided to leave the bubble house to reclaim the love he had missed. He designed a bubble suit that could isolate air and worked overnight to make it. Soon, a sturdy bubble suit was completed. Jimmy gathered his courage, tore open the bubble house he had lived in for over a decade, and crawled down to the first floor. This was the first time in 18 years that Jimmy had left his home. Unfortunately, he still couldn't touch anything directly. He joyfully ran down the street, but as soon as he stopped, he was hit by a bus. The bus passengers were very kind. After learning that Jimmy was going to Nicaragua, they decided to give him a ride. What was supposed to be a joyful journey turned sour when Jimmy inadvertently mocked their beliefs, leading to him being unceremoniously abandoned in a desert. The young man suddenly realized that the old man driving next to him was already dead. He was driving purely with his spirit, and just as they were about to crash into a billboard, the car made a sharp turn, throwing Jimmy directly into a grocery store. At this moment, there were less than 3 hours until Chloe's wedding. To win back his love, Jimmy could only run frantically towards the destination. At this point, Jimmy unexpectedly boarded a private plane, and the pilot turned out to be the old man's twin brother. It was said that the brother died unfortunately while helping Jimmy win back his love. He also decided to help fulfill his brother's unfulfilled wish. Under the old man's guidance, Jimmy finally arrived at Niagara Falls, just below where Chloe's wedding was about to take place. However, at this moment, the old man also unfortunately died during the flight. As the helicopter was about to crash into the falls, the old man, relying on his cautious spirit, pulled up and soared into the sky. Unfortunately, Jimmy was thrown off the plane midair and fell below Niagara Falls. Luckily, he had his bubble suit on. At the last moment, Jimmy finally arrived and interrupted the wedding. Looking at the indescribably beautiful Chloe in front of him, Jimmy poured out his heart. Then, in front of Chloe, he gave the bubble protecting her life a push and tore it open. "I'd rather spend 1 minute holding you than the rest of my life knowing I never could. So if you don't mind, may I kiss the bride?" After kissing Chloe, Jimmy unsurprisingly fell to the ground. However, a few seconds later, Jimmy suddenly opened his eyes. Indeed, the power of love is very strong. Jimmy and Chloe successfully walked into the hall of marriage. They got into the wedding car and found that both old men were not dead and were continuing their world tour with their girlfriends. This seemingly fantastical and absurd movie is actually based on a true story. The real Bubble Boy lived for less than 4 months after leaving the bubble house. But in the last moments of his life, he embraced his mother, who loved him and gave everything for him.